go back to basics. Just make sure that all the citations are matching across business profile and all the various directories and social media profiles. Make sure all the addresses and contact details are matching. This consistency, because that's the first sort of trust signal that you just need to maintain your local SEO. Hi, I'm Cathryn Stormont, and this is SEO in 2026.
Cathryn, what's your number one SEO tip for 2026?
In 2026, to focus on local SEO with AI overviews and now AI mode dominating the searches, it's really important to focus on the local SEO to try and keep maintaining a certain level of traffic volume.
So is it certain types of businesses that this tip is most relevant for?
There is businesses particularly such as things like solicitors or accountants that have very much informational-led content where their blog content is being picked up by overviews, basically dominating that, which means their traffic volumes are starting to decrease, which is what we're seeing in lots of different sectors. But they have a local edge, they have a local office, and it's those searches where people are looking for example, solicitors in Brighton or something like that, where their AI overviews are not being shown as much, typically around about 40% versus say 90% of informational-led content. So that there's just an opportunity to try and maximize that element, your local SEO, to try and get more traffic and keep that traffic up as much as you can in these times, really.
So you're saying that AI overviews is general bad for local businesses like solicitors and accountants?
I think that it's starting to hurt their traffic volumes, as we're seeing in many, many industries. It's just so they're not, because the AI overviews are appearing and they're getting the answers to their questions. If it's a legal kind of angle, their answers are being shown. They're not necessarily coming through to the site, not necessarily inquiring. So it is having an effect. But if we can look at searches that are more local based, people looking for specific solicitors or specific accountants, just use those as examples, but in certain areas, even if it could extend to other service-based industries, whether you've got a cafe, a restaurant, a plumber, all these sort of things, those sort of elements, and we can try and focus on the optimizing towards your local SEO through your website content, but also focusing more on your trustworthiness and thinking about various different things such as the citations, making sure that you're in the directories and in a good place, really.
Got you. And it sounds like you're saying focus more on bottom of funnel phrases as opposed to top of funnel phrases. Is that correct?
Yes. So thinking about the long tail. So so that at this point they know exactly what they want and what type of service they want, and focusing on those more bottom tunnel rather than they have a wider need and they're looking more question-led, informational-led.
Okay, so it's long tail bottom of funnel phrases that describe something very specific that someone's looking for. And then is AI less likely to produce that kind of result? And then are you saying that you're more likely to get traffic from Google through a conventional search result?
Yes. So although AI will start appearing for local search, they are appearing more and more. It's just there are certain ones where if someone's looking for a certain type of service near me, you won't necessarily show up as much. Or if there are ones where that people are looking for, a Thai takeaway, or they're looking for where can I find a Thai takeaway in a certain area of London or something like that, you get more likely to get your local map searches, so the business profile searches, rather than your AI overview section. So you're not as dominated. Then you'll start to hopefully get more traffic through that. That's the thought.
Understood. Okay. And how is AI search dealing with those types of phrases? For instance, if you ask ChatGPT or another AI search engine, where's the best and nearest Indian restaurant to me, then is ChatGPT and other similar engines at a stage now where they know where you are? And if so, how do they go about delivering such results?
There is some indication that that's starting to appear, that they're showing certain places and recommendations, appearing, showing various names and sites, but it generally doesn't come up as often as you would with a general question or where you're trying to get an answer to something. So I think that's where the opportunity lies, I think, to try and get more that way. But it is starting to appear where it's realizing where you are and and that sort of thing. But it's not always correct, and it's not always right on that.
So what do we need to do with our websites to optimize them more effectively for local queries?
With the websites, the sort of traditional way was very much, okay, I'm in a certain location, I'm going to change my content to, say, if I was in, it was a service in Leeds, make sure you've got leads through the site and things like that. That's sort of changing. It's very much about appearing that you're part of the local community. So making sure that the blog content has a sort of local edge. So if you're part of any charity endeavours, or you've been doing any local event sponsorship, or you've got local case studies and success stories, really to try and get that across with any awards, accreditations, angle. So it's just about showing to AI and the search engines and the users, obviously, that you actually are an expert in that area, in the local area.
And the awards, the expansive reviews that you're talking about there, would you want to publish them on your own website?
Yes. If you've anything like that, you definitely would want to put that, whether it's a form of a blog article, or ideally you want that on the homepage as a trust signal that you're dealing with a reputable business. But I think what's probably more important, than just the website now is to look outside of that. Really look at where you're listed in a business, not just thinking about your business profile on Google, but also any directories where you've got any sort of citations, and making sure those addresses and your names and addresses match across and there's no inconsistencies. So it shows, again, another trustworthy trust signal. That's probably a first port of call, really, is just make sure that all these directories where you're listed in Bing Maps and Apple Maps and all these other ones match exactly. I see that quite often where you've got people have different trading names, or have got limited, or different variations of the way that they put the name and the address that just doesn't match, and that really does help the local SEO with you.
And how often do you have to publish new case studies and get new reviews if possible up there? I mean, do you have to do it on a monthly basis? Can you get away with getting all the content you need published on your website, then forgetting about it for a year?
I think it's about regularly keeping updated. I wouldn't necessarily be monthly if it's a case study, but just if you had a regular updated case study every few months, and if it's more about the quality of the content than keeping it completely up to date all the time. But it's just about trying to keep a level of maintaining and get the important ones across, but always keep an eye on it. I wouldn't just do all the content and then leave it, because it's about constant refinement.
And are there any recent updates to the way that Google My Business operates that you need to take advantage of now?
I think one of the ones that people tend to miss actually is there's an opportunity to link to any current blogs and social posts, so you can put your latest blogs or content in there as a sort of additional information for people about the business. And I think that's what it shows is that you're regularly updating content, that you'll keep going, and then any sort of local angles, you can also put that in there. So any local kind of blog articles that you've got going on.
Can you use an RSS feed to automatically do that, or is this something you have to manually do?
You can set up that as well. Yeah, you can sort of set up something manually as well as automated. So there's both ways. But I think truthfully, it's only just a few links you can add, so it makes sense to just keep an eye on it now and again and update it.
What about a platform like Reddit? There's a lot of discussion of different brands going on there. It's a hot topic within SEO. Should local businesses be involved in that as well?
Yes, especially where there's a discussion that's got it's back to those sort of questions where people are asking in Google, where do I find the nearest solicitor, cafe, or plumber? Yeah, where do I find that in a certain area? Or they're asking, where's the best family restaurant in so just in those details, and they want to be good to sort of participate in relevant discussions to show, again, a source of information, but also would provide a good external link. And there's value in AI also using Reddit content I know like ChatGPT uses quite a bit of that to pull out information. So it's just that's a good place to be for various different reasons, really.
Should local brands have their own subreddit?
Potentially. I think it's more about looking for relevant discussions and participating in them more so.
Now, one other challenge for local brands is negative reviews. How do you deal with negative reviews? And should you try to encourage a customer to change that review? Do you try and actually encourage more positive reviews to replace that?
People are entitled to their reviews. So I think the best thing you can kind of do in that situation is to try and get more of them to replace it and to update it. But I think the most important thing would be to respond to it where you've got a negative review, to try and turn it into a positive in some way for your comment. So showing that at least responding to customers' needs and things like that. All of that shows level of interactivity with the Google reviews, which will help your local SEO.
And is there likely to be any significant changes to the future of local SEO? Because it seems like what you're suggesting is an ongoing, consistent approach that has been successful for a few years.
It's changing from a point of view that's less focused about what you're putting on the website and more focused on things like Reddit, making sure that you're showing comments and showing authority in different ways. So thinking about events they can sponsor and external events and trying to, again, show authority. So it's just, I think the angle's going more from, I need to put on that I'm a local business on the website, but show trust to Google through all the external sources. I think that's more important now.
Can you see an era that local businesses don't have their own website and rely on third-party platforms, or do you think they're going to require their own website for the foreseeable future?
I think the website role of a website, I think, is going to be it's going to change. So I think there'll still be a need for a website, but it's thinking about how to optimize that content for AI. So the local business is going to have to think about trying to maintain it. So but there is a slight change in the way that AI is now, directing people to contact people by phone or email, or so there's a sort of step that's sort of missing. So there's a possibility that you're going to start seeing more direct contact, and there'll be websites all sort of becoming having a slightly different role in trying to generate more of the AI top of the funnel, I think.
And talking about AI, are you seeing any trend in terms of local businesses using AI to produce content?
Not so much. I think all businesses using AI to produce content, but I think there's not necessarily a local edge. But the only thing you can say about the local businesses is if they're smaller and they've got less capacity, then they will use more of the AI tools to help produce the content.
Cathryn, what's the key takeaway from the tip you shared today?
Go back to basics. Just make sure that all the citations are matching across business profile and all the various directories and social media profiles. Make sure all the addresses and contact details are matching this consistency, because that's the first sort of trust signal that you just need to maintain your local SEO.
Cathryn Stormont is an SEO consultant at DigiFreelancer. Find out more over at digifreelancer.co.uk. Cathryn, thanks so much for being part of SEO in 2026.
That's okay.
I've been your host, David Bain. Get your copy of SEO in 2026, the book, over at SEOin2026.com.